Knock on every piece of wood you can find because barring any setbacks, Bradley Beal is due back for the Phoenix Suns on Tuesday against the Golden State Warriors. On today's episode of Locked On Suns, all the stats, quotes, and everything else you need to get ready as the Phoenix Suns' Big Three is one step closer to their debut. Let's go.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And we are back. This is Locked On Phoenix Suns. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Brendon Kleen, a credentialed media member covering the Suns for the past 7 seasons, a writer at Suns.com, and the host of the Just Basketball Show wherever you get your podcasts. A big thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen. To start your Tuesday, it is Suns game day. We have a back-to-back in the Valley this week, and then more games at home to come. So thank you for spending your Tuesday morning here on the show. We're free and available everywhere, including YouTube, so just click that follow or subscribe button wherever you're finding the show. Get a new episode in your feed every Monday through Friday. Get locked onto the Phoenix Suns and become an everydayer right along with me throughout the rest of the season. Today's show brought to you by the Gametime app, the best place to buy a ticket. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA when you do for $20 off your first purchase. We'll talk about Gametime more later on, but let's get to Bradley Beal, the man of the hour in Phoenix once again. He is due back for the Suns for the first time in about 3.5 weeks. Sunday, 3 weeks ago. It'll be Tuesday now, just over 3. And we will get to see this Suns team at full strength, hopefully soon. Kevin Durant is questionable for Tuesday. Grayson Allen and Nasir Little both out. But let's focus on Beal, because not only does it seem like he's back, it appears from what he is saying, and obviously the time that he missed, that he is staying back. Beal appeared before the media at practice on Monday, and I want to go through some of what he said. Then in the next segment, I found a bunch of cool stats about Bradley Beal that I don't think I've talked about on the show before that illustrate not only what makes him a special player, but also things that specifically relate to his fit in Phoenix. So we'll go through those, and I'll give you my thoughts on what they mean. And we'll close out with PJ Tucker. He could be available. Does he make sense for Phoenix? A little more trade talk to close this out. But let's get to Beal's comments. And as I mentioned with what he said about his recovery, it seemed pretty extreme, you know? He acknowledged that it wasn't just a strain, right? That was his words. And I don't think anybody really bought that. There were obviously reports out there that it was a disc issue, more so than just a pull or a soreness or anything like that. Teams love to use those kinds of words when they don't want to be specific. Who cares? We all kind of knew it was more serious than that. But Beal said it was, he was asked, like, was it painful to just sort of exist, to sit down, to fall asleep, all those things? And he said yes. You know, he said all of the above, right? And that's tough. Like, I know it doesn't really matter at the end of the day to a lot of fans, like, what people are going through. And he's healed now, so I'm not going to sit here and focus too much on that aspect of it, but it's difficult, right? And I think it contributes to the excitement that we should all feel, because it's not just the player, the big acquisition hitting the court again for your favorite NBA team. It's like a dude overcoming something. And I think that should be appreciated too. It's not easy to rehab. That's a verb, right? For a reason. We use that word as an action for a reason. He's rehabbing his back injury. That's effort and energy and work to recover from something like that, and hopefully he is there now. One of the things that stood out about what Beal said as well is the support that he felt from Booker and Durant that allowed him to be patient while he healed, right? He admitted that if it was just up to him, he was chomping at the bit. He would have probably been back already, right? Wouldn't have respected the team's wishes of the kind of 3-week shutdown that we saw here in, November into December, and he would have pushed it. But he didn't, obviously. He waited for that 3-week window, started practicing last week and warming up pregame, went through some full practices, now is clearing the checkpoints to participate in a real game. I don't know if the Suns will do shoot-around on Tuesday or Wednesday. A lot of time teams don't do full shoot-arounds on back-to-backs, but here he is now, and that support that he felt was what allowed him to see that process through. And that's very cool, because we'll talk in the next segment, and obviously a lot of the focus is always going to be on the basketball. You know that if you're an everyday or you listen to this show all the time, that's my focus mostly too. I'm not the type of person to overdo it with the narratives and the speculation and everything else, but the narrative here, or whatever you want to call it, the off-court aspects of his return matter just as much as the on-court, in my opinion. How these three guys come together as people, as leaders, as personalities is it's vital to how far this team ultimately is going to get, right? I mean, there's no way around that. Sacrifice is going to happen. Adjustments are going to happen. Communication in-game, outside of games. Difficult moments. Being down in a playoff series. Having to rally from behind in a big game. Chasing a seed in the conference by the end of the year. These things are not easy, and the Suns also lost a quarter of the year of that stuff. Obviously, they've been around one another, but being nice to each other while you're recovering from injuries and stuff, or being supportive when a guy has a good night and you're on the bench, it's fine, but it's no substitute for experiencing trials and errors together. And that's what they're going to get, and it's a great sign that Booker and Durant were in his ear in such a positive way to give him the message of the most important thing you can do right now is rehabbing, not being out here, not forcing it. This is your job right now, as much as that may suck. We got this until you're back. And look, they won games without him. They're still above 500. 12-10 is not where anyone wanted this team to be, but there is a path forward. He also mentioned, it was tough seeing Booker be double and triple teamed in that Kings game, and he's looking forward to making life easier. That's good stuff. That's what you want to hear. But the last thing that I thought was great that speaks to this dynamic between this big three is Beal had a comment to the media on Monday about accountability. And specifically, the way that he put it was that so long as he, Booker, and Durant are accountable, good or bad, to one another, then that trickles down to the rest of the team. And I think that's way more insightful, or gives us a lot more insight, I should say, into how these guys are operating than I've seen, a lot of people talk about. That's a unique way to put it, right? Because we talk about leadership all the time. It's very hard to see. It's impossible to measure. That's a pretty good example of how these guys, or at least how Beal views what their leadership style and philosophy is going to be as a trio for the rest of this season. As long as they feel respected and honest and open with one another and hold each other to a high standard, their expectation is that that will just flow down. Of course, they're going to communicate with their teammates. I don't think that means that they're just going to ignore that aspect of being the best players on a team. But I like that mentality. And I think it's kind of how Vogel operates, right? With Vogel, less is more. I believe that. There's no problem until there's a problem, right? You don't need to coach guys to the nth degree of what might happen with their role, with their performance, with their interpersonal dynamics. Treat everybody like adults, respect everybody that's involved, work hard, model what type of behavior and work ethic you want to see, and trust that everybody will follow suit up until they don't. Innocent until proven guilty, basically. And it sounds like Beal is embracing that himself. It's not far off from what he's said, but I just love everything I hear from this guy. I'm thrilled that he's coming back. I will get right into what makes him such a fun player and fit as an athlete here, but every time I hear Bradley Beal speak, I get more excited about what he can add as a guy, as a competitor to this organization, and you got to just trust that the health is where it needs to be. I don't really have a lot to add there. I think he won't play in both games of this back-to-back. I would imagine there will be a minutes limit, but his mentality seems to be right on all counts, and as a part of the brain trust of this team with the other two stars and Vogel and James Jones and Matt Ishbia, I feel good about everybody being on the same page as Beal returns again, hopefully for longer. So let's get to those stats and what Beal can do within the context of this Suns team that we've already seen for 21 games. Next, 22. First, today's show brought to you by Gametime, the best place to buy a ticket, because basically Gametime said, all right, we hear you. There's a lot of things you don't like about buying tickets. How'd you feel if we fixed all of them? And they did. Last minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals. You see your price all at one time on the front end, so there's no nickeling and diming at the end. You can see your view from your seat in the app. And they have a bunch of protections for you. Event cancellation, job loss. So basically, from start to finish, Gametime puts their arm around your shoulder, takes care of you. Gametime's the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. Again, see the view from your seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect. See those all-in prices up front so you know you're getting a great deal. And buy those tickets within 2 taps. Concerts, comedy, theater, sports, of course. Whatever you want to see, buy the ticket on Gametime. Download the Gametime app now, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA when you do to get $20 off your first purchase. That's terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Keeping it rolling, let's talk stats. I have 5 pretty eye-opening, cool statistics for you guys that run the gamut of all the things Beal might do on this team and why he fits into those molds. Now, I'm not going to be naive and tell you it's going to be perfect and seamless and awesome, but there is a lot of reason to be optimistic based on what we've seen from this Suns team and from Beal, even recently in the seasons that he's dealt with injuries, that would lead you to have optimism that he's going to make this team a whole lot better right away. First, join the Locked On Suns Insiders, where you'll get my first reaction to all Suns news, rumors, and podcasts, interviews, all that stuff around the internet. I send it directly to you with my thoughts, exclusive game day content and observations, which 12 of the next 15 games for Suns are at home. You're going to want to hear what I am seeing and hearing on the ground at these games in person. And once per week, a video breakdown of something going on in the world of the Suns, which is a private link I send directly to you and only you if you subscribe. You can also respond to me one-on-one engagement and conversations via text message. I'll do giveaways and Q&As as we grow that over the course of the season. Join the Locked On Suns Insiders now and be in the know about the Suns all the time. Click the link in the show description to sign up below here on YouTube or your audio platform, or visit joinsubtext.com/LockedOnSuns. All right, Bradley Beal stats. If all goes well in these 2 games, well, 3 games, including Friday, I would imagine I will be doing a video on Beal and or the whole Big 3. That's pretty obvious. So if you want more film analysis of how these guys look, that'll be on the Locked On Suns Insider, so sign up there. But let's get to the stats for real this time. This one I've said a million times, I think, or talked around it. Bradley Beal shot 70% over the past 2 seasons at the rim. That's elite. For a guy who understandably has injury concerns and is now over 30 years old and everything else, that number is not trending in a bad direction whatsoever. For context, that is the same efficiency that Devin Booker has this season at the rim, when we have all been marveling at his control and fluidity against defenses and playing point guard and everything else. So how well we feel like Booker has gotten to the basket and finished and been poised, Beal has done that the past 2 years at an advanced age while dealing with injuries at the same level Book is right now. There's no real addition to be made to why that's valuable. It's great to have players who can finish at the basket, especially when they're not 7-footers. Bradley Beal is an elite off-ball player. I mean, it almost feels like we got on the wrong foot when Shams and other people in the NBA analysis and reporting worlds tried to paint Bradley Beal as the point guard of this team. Now, if you're an everydayer, if you're a big Suns fan, you knew that was ridiculous. Book was going to be the point guard of this team, but it made us think too much about what Beal could do as like a second ball handler rather than think about what he can do as an off-ball player, cutting, running off of screens, getting into simple two-man action and using his burst and his versatility to punish defenses, right? Speaking to the off-ball, more screen assists, which they get made fun of because guys like Rudy Gobert, Jazz fans, people try to paint those guys, big men, to be better than they are or more valuable than they are by coming up with the stat of like, well, when they set a screen, good stuff happens. And it's like, all right, well, that's probably Donovan Mitchell, not Rudy Gobert, right? But it's interesting to think of it for a guard. And it is a big part of how Washington played last season, is the other thing, right? Between Porzingis, Kuzma, and Beal, but especially Porzingis and Beal, it was a completely unpredictable dribble handoff frenzy in the half court for the Wizards. And Bradley Beal last season had more screen assists total than Obi Toppin, Lou Dort, and Michael Porter Jr. That's pretty crazy. Lou Dort plays small ball center. Michael Porter Jr., that team screens a bunch and tries to get mismatches and openings that Jokic can puncture constantly. And Obi Toppin is a big. Bradley Beal had more screen assists than all of them. He shot 43% on wide open threes the past 2 seasons. Kind of thought that number would be higher, but obviously that's still elite. You can't ask for, too much higher. On the topic of what he can do on the ball, because making wide open threes, finishing at the rim, screening, those are all easy ways where, again, to go back to the Wizards, he was able to get easy shots because he read the game at a really high level, developed chemistry with Porzingis, was a different size than Porzingis, which made it hard to switch or, over-rotate because you were leaving yourself in a danger zone with guys who could punish mismatches. That's going to be here. And I talked about this last week a little bit, but you put Nurkic in kind of that Porzingis role, Durant in kind of that Porzingis role, Booker. The ability for all those guys, all 4 of these Suns starters, to play on or off the ball, to score at all 3 levels, although Nurkic less so, and pass well, and attack mismatches. It's just a real pick your poison, and all those stats I think speak to that. But on ball, the past 2 years, Bradley Beal has a 3-to-1 assist-to-turnover ratio total. He plays low-mistake basketball for a star player. His turnover rate the past 2 seasons has been about 13%. That's not elite, but with somebody who has the ball and is looked to score as much as he is, that is a pretty solid number. Booker this season, 12.7%, Durant 13.1%, and we think of those guys as pretty elite creators. Beal gets the ball moving, can find teammates for an assist once he creates an advantage with his burst, with his shooting ability, with his gravity, and then at the same time doesn't make mistakes giving the ball up. Lastly, defense. Big open question. What what can we reasonably expect from Beal? If he's truly fully healthy, we can learn that now. I don't think I learned anything defensively from what Beal did when he first came back, because he looked pretty rough against the Bulls, pretty rough against the Thunder. Like, those games just, if you were going to learn anything from them and take anything from them, it probably wouldn't be good. Off ball, though, as a team defender, Beal averaged 1.9 deflections per game last season, which is more than these three guys who we think of as some of the better defenders in the NBA. Scotty Barnes in Toronto, Patrick Beverley in Chicago last season, obviously Philly this season, and Josh Okogie from these Phoenix Suns. Beal had more deflections per game, almost 2, than all of those guys. So, he is a high IQ guy. He's obviously quick-footed and agile, and while he's undersized against certain matchups, he might get overpowered. He can create turnovers and deflections, and I think that can help contribute to the aggressive schemes we know the Suns want to deploy. Let's see if it happens. Closing out the show with some trade talk, PJ Tucker seems to be available from the Clippers after his trade from Philadelphia. Do the Suns make sense for a reunion with PJ? We'll get to it in just a moment. First, today's show brought to you by FanDuel. As the weather gets colder, the offers stay hot at FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 straight into your account if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options. Let's go to the money lines first. The NFL this weekend. Monday Night Football will already be done by the time that you're hearing this, but this upcoming week, you have, let's see, what's a big one? Dolphins hosting the Jets Sunday at 11 local, minus 720. Throw a little bit there, then get into the spreads, the player props, the over-unders, and get to work with the bonus bet money. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to kick off the NFL season. Celebrate the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, let's keep it rolling. Reminder to follow the Locked On Suns TikTok account for game reaction videos and more analysis all year long. You can search Locked On Suns on TikTok, or the link is also in the show description along with the Locked On Suns Insider sign up. Suns play the Nuggets tonight at 8. Nope, not Nuggets. Warriors at 8 Pacific time. Nope, 8 Mountain time. Catch every single basket with John Bloom and everybody else on the SiriusXM app. Search Suns to get that broadcast going. Check that game out if you're out and about on the SiriusXM app by searching Suns. Let's close it out. PJ Tucker, according to Shams Charania, could be available. He's getting DNPs right now for the Clippers because they desperately need size. They are playing Daniel Tice over him. They are playing some other younger, more offensively and athletically inclined players ahead of him as depth pieces. And he's on the last year of his contract, so he probably wants to play. Do the Suns make sense? You have to be realistic about what you're getting with PJ Tucker, but I'll just tell you right now, I think the answer is yes. I think they should be interested. We talked with Brandon on Monday about kind of just previewing what trade season could look like for the Suns. And here's where I'm at. They're not going to be able to get a lot, right? You're getting, I think the way I put it is, if you can get a good 7th, 8th, 9th man who you trust, the deadline has been a success. The Suns have a handful of second-round picks, some trade exceptions, and minimum players who would have to agree to be traded at their disposal, and that's it. So, Tucker, while he might not be impressing a lot of people, that's what you're looking at, okay? So that's what you're looking at, meaning he's the caliber of guy that you're probably going to be able to get if you're James Jones. So I'm not saying PJ Tucker should be like at the top of the whiteboard, priority number one, but if he's unhappy, there's a way to get him, and he feels a need, that might be the best you can do when it's all said and done. But again, being realistic about what PJ Tucker is right now, he has only attempted 16 threes in 239 minutes this season of NBA basketball. He does not want to shoot, and he's made about 40% of his threes the past 2 seasons, but you're looking at, per 36 minutes, he attempted 2.5 basically the past last year and then so far this year. So it's not a lot of volume. It's not really something the defense needs to respect. He can still get on the offensive glass. He still has his strength. He is 38 years old. You're probably getting him for a fairly small role. I mean, again, this past season, he played 26 minutes per game with the Sixers. This year so far, he was at 22 with the Sixers and about 14.5 with the Clippers. So this is a reduced version of what PJ Tucker has been. The reason that I like it is that he can be a small ball center option that the Suns currently don't really have. And I know that, well, I mentioned Tucker being an expiring contract. He technically has a player option next year, so I didn't want to clarify that. I looked at it as I was talking. They have a small ball center option, of course. His name is Kevin Durant, but you need size around that. I don't think you can trust Keita Bates-Diop and Nasir Little necessarily right now. Of course, this trade probably wouldn't happen right now either, but Tucker could be part of that answer for you. Let's say you go Durant, Tucker, Gordon, Booker, Beal as a small ball option as a lineup. It's switchable. Durant as a rim protector. You can go 5 out on offense still, and you have enough strength and size and physicality still on the floor to be okay with that. The issue is PJ Tucker is $11 million in salary. So you're probably talking about a 3-team trade. You're probably talking about Grayson Allen or Nasir Little needing to be in it. I don't think that works. You are looking at, you can't stack trade exceptions. So the campaign money, the Dario Saric money, that gets you to 11, but that's not allowed. So it just is a long shot that Tucker could be had by the Suns from that standpoint. I still wanted to bring him up because it's not out of the realm of possibility. I don't think he's going to decline his player option early and get bought out with all that money. But I could see some conglomeration, maybe a 10%, 15% chance that it could happen. But bigger than that, I like to give examples of realistic options that this team has to pursue on the trade market so that Suns fans have an idea of what to expect. I think the type of player that PJ Tucker is, I think the level that it would take of package to get him, and the fact that he's available can give us a template as Suns fans, as Suns followers, to kind of paint a little bit of a picture of what the Suns might end up with. It may not be PJ Tucker if that 10 to 15% chance does not come to pass, but it is probably going to be a player like PJ Tucker for all the reasons that I said. That'll close out the show. Enjoy the game tonight. Don't forget to sign up for Locked On Suns insider text alerts with my observations in the building on Tuesday and Wednesday night for this back-to-back. The Sean Marion celebration on Friday. If you want my thoughts on all that, a video breakdown of what this new look roster and rotation looks like with everybody getting healthy and more, sign up there, TikTok as well. And I will talk to everybody post-game after Suns Warriors.